Let's talk about the big trends on the social media scene. I was going to say the social scene. Ayanda Sishi Wigzell is a freelance journalist and joins us now. Good evening to you. It's lovely to see you as always. So when we see the hashtags Operation Dudula, Kalafong and EFF trending together, what's the story there? We know that Operation Dudula has now laid charges against the CEO of the Kalafong Hospital. Yes,
so Operation Dudula decided to take their protest to the Kalafong Hospital in Atteridgeville, where they were protesting against the alleged use of foreign nationals and undocumented migrants going into the hospital and getting preferential treatment before South Africans do. But of course, this is alleged. It's not proven to be fact. But what happened is that the economic freedom fighters decided to go in there and also stand guard and protect people who were going into the hospital, which then caused a scuffle between Operation Dudula members and members of the economic freedom fighters. This resulted in police then having to fire rubber bullets to disperse the crowds.
So that's the backstory. What were the trends like? I mean, who was where? Because South Africa, as we know, this particular issue and these players have the potential to divide.
Absolutely, they do. Social media was divided. There were people who were talking about the fact that Section 27 and Chapter 2 of the Constitution needs to stand firm and that everybody has a right to have access to health. But other people were stating that, you know, their lived experiences and the fact that hospitals are so derelict right now and there are long queues and people are just not getting access to services, and services should be rather prioritized to people who are citizens of the country. But of course that is not a fact, because we do have a Constitution, and Chapter 2 of our Constitution states that everybody has access to human rights, and Section 27 also states that everybody has access to health in this country regardless of whether or not you're a citizen or not.
So the EFF was in the mix in our next trend, but it was around Ramaphosa and Palapala. We saw what happened in Parliament, and I think a lot of people, you know, you're throwing in the words impeachment, vote of no confidence, but the overriding theme is the president needs to answer.
Absolutely. History is repeating itself again. We saw this with Pay Back the Money and Nkandla, and we're seeing it again now with Palapala and President Cyril Ramaphosa. He is simply not accounting to the people about what actually happened in his robbery on his farm at Palapala farm in Limpopo. The EFF is not happy with the answers that they got. Also, other opposition parties were also not happy with the answers that they got, which resulted in the Speaker of Parliament having to write to the President again in order to actually complete the question and answer session, because it just descended into chaos.
And I mean, you can see, you know, the sort of what started out as a ripple of criticism against the president really building into a tsunami and a tidal wave. Very important that he begins to speak, and soon. And then, you know, it's been an emotional, if not violent week, both for the COPE as a party, but also for the suspended Monsieur Lekota, who's now bowing out. You know, that wasn't a pleasant news conference, was it?
It really was not a pleasant conference at all. And I had this English saying in the back of my mind, you know, if you are in the pursuit of revenge, you need to dig two graves. And this is exactly what COPE has to do. They've built their own grave, and right now what we are seeing is the death of COPE. Earlier this week, Deputy President of COPE, Willie Madisha, together with the spokesperson, Dennis Bloom, suspended leader of COPE, Musiwe Lekota, and then in response, Musiwe then had his own press conference saying that he has suspended Deputy President Willie Madisha as well as Dennis Bloom. But the crux of the matter and what was the talking points of that conference was that a faction from COPE then came in and disrupted that press conference by removing the microphones, and fists were being blown everywhere, chairs were being thrown as well. And the question that we need to ask ourselves here is, what is COPE actually fighting over right now? Because right now it looks like there are crows fighting over little bits of meat after the lion has had the greatest share.
Oh, I mean, we're replaying that video, and it's awful to watch, really. And, you know, some of these individuals we're talking about are really, you know, they have a long political history in the country. And when you ask the question, you know, what's all this for, it becomes even more stark against that backdrop. And then we'll end things off with Enyobeni, of course, another emotive story. Families in doubt this evening, doubting the reasons given for how their children succumbed, how they died.
Yes, we heard today the Department of Health, as well as in the Eastern Cape, release parts of the reports into what happened, into the deaths of the 21 people who died in Enyobeni Tavern. But they have not released the full toxology reports because they're saying that that has to be held private due to the POPI Act. But the parents are very upset about that, and they're saying that this needs to be made public. And they're also not trusting the report that has come from government as well. They're also stating that they haven't been communicated well enough with government, saying that Begicele came there in the beginning of the tragedy, but now he's nowhere to be found, and they've been cast aside, and they just want answers. Earlier, we also saw the owners of the tavern in court facing charges of contravening the Liquor Act. But what parents were also saying is that some of them were not even allowed to be in the courtroom in order to witness those proceedings as well, which then begs the question, who is actually supposed to be, where's the national interest here? Who are the people are we meant to be serving? Because these parents here, they are grieving, and they need to have information, and they need to have justice. And right now what they are feeling is that justice and the wheels of justice are turning very, very slowly for them, and this is incredibly wrong.
Yeah. Certainly a great deal of sobriety needed in navigating these. Well, these were the trends of the week. I don't know if there was anything outside of our list that stood out for you.
I need to support Banyana, guys.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because so we've got the screen on the side of our studio that's showing us everything and the scores. Brazil is one up. I mean. Thank you, guys. I love it when our team is listening to us. And we're hoping that at least for the week ahead, it will be trending in a good way. In other words, we do exactly what we did at CAF, and we would win with a decisive victory.
I'm hoping we can do a slow clap next time we meet one another, Iman.
I hope so. Ayanda, it's always lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.